Imagine this. It's December 5th, 1872. The vast, empty expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. A British brigantine, the Dei Gratia, is slicing through the waves when its crew spots something strange on the horizon. Another ship, a two-masted brigantine just like theirs, is moving erratically, drifting as if without a soul at the helm. As they draw closer, they recognize her, the Mary Celeste, which had set sail from New York a month earlier. The captain of the Dei Gratia, David Morehouse, knows her captain, Benjamin Briggs. They're friends. He hails the ship, but there's no reply, only the sound of the wind and the creaking of the ship's timbers. A strange feeling of dread begins to creep over the crew of the Dei Gratia. Something is terribly wrong. They decide to send a boarding party to investigate. As the small boat pulls alongside the Mary Celeste, the silence is deafening. The sailors climb aboard, their boots echoing on the deserted deck. The ship is eerily quiet. They call out, "Hello, anyone aboard?" But their voices are swallowed by the immense emptiness of the ocean. The sails are partly set but torn, flapping uselessly in the wind. The ship is taking on some water, but it's nothing the pumps can't handle. It's seaworthy. Walking through the ship is like stepping into a frozen moment in time. They go down to the galley. A half-eaten meal sits on a table. In the crew's quarters, clothes are neatly folded in sea chests, pipes and tobacco left behind as if their owners would be back any minute. The ship's cargo, over 1,700 barrels of crude alcohol, is completely intact. In the ship's hold, there's a 6-month supply of food and fresh water, more than enough for the journey. It's as if the 10 people on board simply stood up and walked off the ship into the middle of the ocean. The boarding party makes their way to the captain's cabin. Captain Briggs's logbook is found on his desk. The last entry is dated November 25th, 9 days before the ship was discovered. It notes the ship's position just off the Azores Islands. The entry is routine, giving no hint of any trouble or distress. It simply ends. The ship's papers are missing, along with the captain's sextant and chronometer, his navigational tools. And, most curiously, one of the ship's lifeboats is gone. But what could have possibly happened? There are no signs of violence. No blood stains, no broken furniture, no evidence of a fight. The ship's valuable cargo was untouched, which makes a pirate attack extremely unlikely. Pirates in the 19th century were after loot, and they would have certainly ransacked the ship, taken the alcohol, and likely would have left signs of a struggle. But here, there was nothing. It was clean to clean. The crew of the Dei Gratia are left standing on the deck of this ghost ship, chilled to the bone. 10 people: Captain Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and a crew of 7 all gone, vanished without a trace. They had abandoned a perfectly good, seaworthy vessel for a tiny, fragile lifeboat in the treacherous waters of the Atlantic. Why? What could possibly compel a seasoned captain and his crew to make such a desperate, seemingly suicidal decision? The crew of the Dei Gratia decided to sail the Mary Celeste to Gibraltar, where a formal inquiry was launched. The initial theory put forward by the Attorney General was one of foul play. He suspected the Dei Gratia crew had killed everyone on the Mary Celeste to claim the salvage reward. He was obsessed with this idea, even trying to find bloodstains on a sword found in the captain's cabin, but analysis showed it was just rust. There was simply no evidence to support this claim, and the crew of the Dei Gratia were eventually cleared, though they received a much smaller salvage reward than they deserved due to the lingering suspicion. So, if it wasn't pirates and it wasn't a mutiny or murder by another crew, what else could it be? This is where the story of the Mary Celeste sails from the realm of fact into the vast, open ocean of speculation. Over the last 150 years, theories have ranged from the plausible to the utterly fantastic. One of the more outlandish ideas is that the ship was attacked by a sea monster, perhaps a giant squid that dragged the crew from the deck one by one. Or maybe they sailed into some kind of paranormal vortex, a Bermuda Triangle-like anomaly that transported them to another dimension. There's even a theory involving aliens. While these make for thrilling stories, they lack a single shred of evidence. Let's move on to more grounded possibilities. A popular theory in the early days was mutiny. Did the crew rise up against Captain Briggs? Maybe they got into the alcohol cargo and, in a drunken rage, killed the Briggs family and the other officers, then escaped in the lifeboat. But this doesn't quite fit. Captain Briggs was known as a fair and respected man. The crew was experienced and had good records. And again, why would they leave the ship? A mutiny usually involves taking over the vessel, not abandoning it in the middle of the ocean. Another idea is a sudden, powerful waterspout or a rogue wave. Perhaps a freak weather event struck the ship with such force that it washed everyone overboard in an instant. This could explain the torn sails and the water in the hold. But it doesn't explain the missing lifeboat and navigational instruments. And it seems unlikely that a single wave could take all 10 people, including those who would have been below deck, without doing more significant damage to the ship itself. This brings us to one of the most enduring and scientifically plausible theories, an alcohol vapor explosion. The cargo was 1,701 barrels of crude industrial alcohol. The theory goes that some of these barrels may have leaked. The alcohol would have vaporized, building up pressure in the hold. Fearing an imminent, catastrophic explosion, Captain Briggs ordered everyone to abandon ship immediately. They would have piled into the lifeboat, perhaps trailing a long rope to the Mary Celeste, intending to stay a safe distance away until the danger passed. This explains why they left so quickly, leaving meals half-eaten. It explains why they took the navigational tools so they wouldn't lose their position. And it explains why they took the lifeboat, but then what happened? Maybe the rope snapped, and they were separated from the main ship, left to their fate in a tiny boat against the vastness of the Atlantic. Or perhaps a sudden storm swamped the small lifeboat. This theory also explains the lack of scorch marks or soot. A vapor-based explosion could have been a dramatic whoosh of flame that didn't leave much of a trace. When the salvage crew found the ship, the hold was open, which could have been done to vent the fumes. It's a neat theory, and it ties up a lot of loose ends. However, there's a problem with it. When the cargo was inspected in Gibraltar, all but 9 of the barrels were found to be empty. This was initially seen as evidence for the leak. But these barrels were made of red oak, which is more porous than white oak. It's possible the alcohol simply evaporated over time. Furthermore, the ship's log makes no mention of any concerns about the cargo. Would a cautious captain like Briggs not note down something so potentially dangerous? A recent variation on this theory, proposed by documentarian and McGregor, focuses on a different kind of malfunction. She points to the ship's pump. During a recent repair, it had been disassembled and parts were found stowed incorrectly. McGregor suggests that without a functioning pump, and with the ship taking on more water than expected, Captain Briggs might have mistakenly believed the ship was sinking much faster than it actually was. In a panic, seeing land the Azores on the horizon, he might have made the fatal call to abandon ship, believing they could row to safety. A sudden change in weather could have then doomed the lifeboat. This theory also has its strengths. It accounts for the sense of urgency and the decision to abandon a ship that, to outsiders, seemed perfectly sound. It explains the goal of reaching land. But like all the others, it's impossible to prove, and so the mystery endures. The Mary Celeste has become a legend, a cautionary tale of the sea. It's a story that has inspired countless books, documentaries, and even an early short story by Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, which added fictional details like the teacups still being warm. What we are left with is a collection of fragments, a drifting ship, a final log entry, a missing lifeboat, and 10 souls lost to the ocean. The true story of what happened in those 9 days between the last log entry and the ship's discovery was lost with them. We can analyze the evidence, debate the theories, and try to piece together the puzzle, but we will likely never know for certain. The fate of the Mary Celeste is a stark reminder of the power and mystery of the ocean. It shows us that even with all our technology and knowledge, there are still some secrets the sea refuses to give up. The silence of the Mary Celeste is its most powerful legacy. It asks a question that echoes through history. What happened? What do you think is the most likely explanation for the disappearance of the crew? Was it a freak accident, a technical malfunction, a moment of human panic, or something else entirely? Let me know your theories in the comments below. The story of the Mary Celeste isn't just a historical event. It's a mystery that we all get to try and solve. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed diving into history's greatest unsolved mysteries, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video.